Hello, this is Jer. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included, and I'm going to cycle 100. But before I do, we have some problems, and I can tell in the last episode I got a little bit careless, and I think that's because I got the Carnivore achievement and was all excited that I didn't have to use the incubator. In fact, I gave the command to destroy the incubator both on this base as well on this one, and I went on pretty quickly advancing the bases, made good progress, but we have a problem. Let me show you a little bit of the carelessness. There's no liquid in our pipes. We've got no water, which means two things. Well, first of all, dupes are going to be sick on the floor. And second of all, our electrolyzers are not producing oxygen, so things are looking a bit thin. So that's the first thing that I've got to fix in this episode. The other thing, if I look on the other base, I will see a temperature, and I noticed this just because I was looking at all my rooms and noticed this is no longer Great Hall, and I was like, why is this plant not happy? Because we got a little bit of a temperature bubble, heat bubble up in here. This one isn't as urgent, but we do need to aim to fix that. And we have some cool areas around, so that shouldn't be too difficult. The other thing is this guy here no longer has liquid on it, so I can no longer get carbon dioxide in there. Now, I was expecting that, and that's thanks to your guys' comments. And I made a new system for storing hydrogen. This one has two spaces side by side. Now, if I don't want to necessarily pop in here, this one has 20 kilograms. That's a lot of carbon dioxide that would leak out and cause a bit of an issue. So I'll have to figure out how to do that. Probably the easiest thing, to be honest, is just to build a new one next to it and pump the gas that's in here into the new one. Anyway, we will get started with the water system. Now, probably the easiest solution here is just to simply build a pump in a water cache that exists. I've got this one running out of them. I've got this one, and thanks to, I suspect, a geyser, extra water here, though this one's 43 degrees. But more long-term, or maybe even more medium-term, I should put in some water sieves. Now, thankfully, the last episode, I have been running the metal refinery. I have that up here, and that's been heating this up. So that went from a freezing temperature to a normal temperature. And now I'm able to send polluted water into, well, once these water sieves are created, to actually be able to produce some water more on a medium-term basis. Now, I think I got to, because I've indicated several things here, I've got to tell the dupes, this is probably your highest priority thing. Do this first, because, again, this is more of a medium-term thing. So we'll get started there, plus some mopping up. While construction is going on in the other world, I had a bit of a mystery to solve. And none of the dupes are able to get down here. I want to build a steel oil well and continue digging around here. But there's no atmo suits or worn atmo suits around the base. And this is bizarre. This has never happened before. They've disappeared completely. Usually they become worn and they drop and they get taken over here. I thought maybe temporarily they were inside this. I looked at the contents here. No. And then I realized what is going on. I'm having this auto sweeper pick up everything and put it into the conveyor loader with the idea that anything I want to transport is going to show up here. I didn't really intend to have that there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have this guy move over one tile. And I'll have to have the other base send some more atmo suits back or produce them over here. Dupes are starting on this pipe system, and I'm making one change to this electrical wire circuitry. I was finding that this circuit here was becoming, well, still has issues, but removing all of this, including the atmo suits, into the other circuit that's currently not having an issue, I thought would be a smart thing. And the pump is being put in. Just about. Someone else can go and finish that off for us. Do a little bit of mopping up here. Oh, and we need some power. Do I have that? No. Now this is, I may have to do something about this electrical circuit because it's got too much stuff on it. but it might help a little bit. So in the last episode, I made this system. This is a polluted water to oxygen system. Almost ready to destroy this. We've got to wait for actually, let's go back, make this priority, because until this pump actually has power, we are not producing oxygen. Here we are. Water's on the way. It's going to make its way towards the electrolyzers. That's not going to last long, but actually, we already have this set up too. This is awesome. So polluted water is going into here. That's going to be pushing water down in here. Currently, nothing is happening. That's just because we have to wait for filtration medium to be put in these two guys. But at least we've got water here. This electrolyzer currently not producing anything, because the way I have this working, it's going to go visit this guy, and this has a chance to clean the water from the washrooms, have it load into this in priority order, because I don't want that line to get backed up. So it goes through here, and if this is empty, which it currently is, then we'll have water going out. This line here is the water that comes from these two guys, once filtration medium is put in there, of course. And only when this is completely out, this essentially is a last resort for the time being, that will, in that case, send that water out into the system. And it shouldn't be long before the first electrolyzer starts producing oxygen. There we go. We can all breathe a little bit better. So some of the hatch stables are empty, or emptying. They're 4 out of 7 over here. So this would be a good opportunity to put in a little bit more automation, especially since we don't need incubator anymore. Have things paused again. So this is a line that's sending water from here. Ultimately, of course, I turned this off in the last little bit because we are having issues with water, the other asteroid. But this water is getting priority versus the water that's being treated from the washroom. Realize I've got a mistake here, so what I'm going to do is, if you can see this, water's going from here. This is the line that's essentially new water. I don't want this to have priority, so I'm going to cut this, and this is going to start to take water from the washroom. Eventually what will happen is this will actually start to get backed up. It'll get backed up here, eventually make its way so that the actual washroom becomes backed up. But what I can do, what I intended to do, and didn't really do this right, just simple fix, I'll put a liquid bridge right here, and this will only output this water if this guy is empty. Now that water is flowing once again in our base, time to make some plans for what we want to do. Continuing to expand the number of polluted water bottles that are down here. That's that. We can get the polluted water to oxygen system going. If that's the case, I'll be able to actually turn off this guy, which will actually relieve this electrical circuit, because this circuit's based, or these pumps are based on heavy watt wires, so that won't have the same issue over here. So let's, now that we've got that, build more of these guys all the way through. I can see I need another pump. Now after that is built, we're going to go over here and dig out this area and direct this polluted water towards the polluted water storage, because I'd like to build in this area anyways. Now, this is a nice thing about having a liquid lock here. This is, it's not actually that high pressure of polluted oxygen, but if I bumped into this over here, it would push into the base. This prevents the dupes from experiencing it, because when they're out here, they've got some atmosuits. Looking at a little bit more of the long-term water situation, and hoping I can get rid of these guys now that the washroom's back online. But this isn't a whole lot of polluted water, so I wanted to get down and free this guy, because this cool salt slush geyser would be very nice if it was outputting new liquid. So we're getting down here. I might even up the priority for that, just so we can make sure we get new cool liquid into the asteroid. So now turning this pump off and getting the oxygen from the polluted water to oxygen system to flow into here. So there it is. First bit of oxygen from polluted water is making its way towards the base. This guy's still sending some out, but once one of the dupes disable that, that won't be the case anymore. And the only use case for this right now is the actual Atmos suits that will grow over time. So now when the dupes go out here, it will because they have collected some polluted water. Freeing the cool saltwater geyser. Actually, if I click or I destroy that one too, that'll help a little bit. I'll continue to dig out around here, just to give more space for all this liquid. In fact, maybe I'll continue digging along here as well. But just to make sure that doesn't become overpressured, let's do this particular dig right there as a high priority. So now that I'm receiving oxygen from polluted water oxygen system, there's no need to filter because I'm already doing the filter in this area over here. So that'll save a little bit of power, especially on that circuit that was having a bit of an issue. And getting rid of this pump as well. So I tried putting this decoration here, hoping that would make a great hall, but it is not good enough. So just digging out a little bit more around here so we can put in a better decoration. Maybe we'll try this, made out of granite in the far area. See if this recreates the Great Hall effect that we once had. See, building here is taking some damage from overheating. This isn't something that I built. This is from the previous world that lived here before. But nonetheless, one thing I don't want to have happen is the dupes throw metal to maintain it, because they will. So I'm going to disable auto repair and instruct them to delete it. They currently don't have access to that, but at least when they do, I know they're not going to be throwing more and more copper wasting away at that. Scrubbing the skills of art so I can get them to get the best art skills. Where are they? Here, art. I want them to have masterworks before they decorate anymore from this point. So having the dupes put a line here, this is going to be a salt water line. It's going to go all around the base, around this area here where it's cool. Not very cool, but it's really the only coolest spot I have on the base for the time being. It's going to go through some granite tiles, going through lead, radiant pipes around here, and just having radiant pipes built around the electrolyzers. That's the two items, two buildings that are producing the most amount of heat. Actually, hold on, scratch that. That's also should probably put some radiant pipes around here as well. So I see these guys are getting quite warm as well. So this over here is, I don't think that gives me the Great Hall effect yet, but as soon as art gets the skills and they make something out of this rock, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a Great Hall. Having a bit of power situation, so adding a second manual generator into this room. I think what was ultimately happening is this circuit here wasn't connected, which means hydrogen wasn't pumping anything. So once those hydrogen pumps start putting hydrogen into these two guys, that should help quite a bit. There we are. First little bit of hydrogen is back. Not much, but as the pumps can run more and more. Actually, just realized this pump is not connected either. Definitely want to get that into the mix. It is clear we need another electrical circuit, so adding a third power transformer. It's going to be shared in the room with pips. They're not going to mind. We'll have that distributing power across the base. Over here, decided to build this pump at this location with these tiles. This is going to prevent me from wrapping stuff all the way along like that. And then I'll be able to start directing this polluted water into the base to turn that into oxygen. Oh, look at this. What could it possibly be? New blueprint. It is a sunny retro wall pot. Well, maybe someday I will build that. So now I have 3 smaller circuits out of the heavy watt wire system. So hopefully this is going to make everything happy. I've got essentially an upper area that's covering this zone, a middle area, including way down here, and this zone here, which is the lower zone. Right now, it all seems to be happy at the moment, but with oxygen not included, things can change quickly moment to moment. So we'll see how this all goes. Now, the other thing that I'm doing is relocating some industrial equipment. Well, just the exosuit forge right now. I could see some of the dudes were struggling getting it to run up here. So relocating that down here in the heavy wire system. Got this new farm over here growing some grub fruit. So once that starts to yield some food, I'll be able to get rid of mealwood. Very excited to get rid of this. The other base already has gotten rid of their mealwood because they're growing lettuce. Now I'm out of fertilizer on both bases, so we're gonna have to produce fertilizer. Found some fertilizer that I can actually dig out, so maybe we'll start with that before starting up a production line. With some coal and clay, we can start the process of creating some ceramic. What I'm going to do is set that at low priority just to encourage the auto sweeper to send material in here instead of having the dupes run back and forth to do it. So over on this world that doesn't have any phosphorate I can dig, or rather fertilizer, I'm going to produce fertilizer. Over on this world, we can wait a little bit longer to produce our own fertilizer. Since I was able to dig out all the fertilizer that's around, all I have to do is wait for the dupes to put in a polluted water line that's going to feed into this guy. Because this base has the metal refinery and has all the reed fiber, it was a lot easier to produce suits. So what I'm having the dupes do is produce suits here and then have them dropped off, and it's going to be sent back to the other world. Because right now I can only have one dupe go into this area, and that's a bit of a problem because there's a lot I want to do around the oil biome. So just checking on this. This plant is not happy, but because of this decoration, we do have a great hall. And I just need to get rid of a piece of liquid, and we'll enable this cooling line to go around. Took out a few pieces of pipe, so it's bizarre. Seems maybe it's the fact that every liquid bridge here is kind of causing a bit of a backup, but I don't have a continual flow. I will destroy yet another piece of liquid and see if that makes this thing go a little bit quicker. One of the comments I had from Death One is suggesting putting pipes in that through tiles when you can for decoration purposes. So doing that right here and trying to remember to do that a little bit more. So now I'm redirecting this polluted water. Actually going to have it go through the whole system. That's removing the germs. There's no germs in it. It's just a lot of have to work through these pipes. As long as I have a valve here to control how much goes in, that shouldn't cause a backup in the washroom. So I actually decided not to do that exact plan. What I'm going to do, have this polluted water go through here and actually, after all, make its own path down to feed into the polluted water to oxygen system. Because I just realized if I send it into this area, which isn't needed because I don't need to remove bacteria, but it's also going to convert it to water. My plan was to put it down here so that this change will allow that to happen. Still having issues with this pipe going around slowly, so I'm going to take out this whole section and rebuild it and see what that does. Just realized a design flaw with the hatch rooms. Not a big one, but I want to put auto sweeper in this 3 tiles. And there's a light in the way, so easily moving the lights over will take care of that. So now we've got the polluted water line from this little cache of polluted water going into our system. It's essentially being shared with this line, but maybe what I will do is temporarily cut this right here to help drain this, because I'd like to drain that area. In order to speed that up, let's put in some of these guys. Getting the dupes to build a steel pump so we can finally get access to this crude oil. Decided at the same time I'm going to make conductive wire, and I'm going to upgrade one of my regular wires to conductive wire all the way through, because with both an oil well and a pump, I suspect that's going to put a lot of strain on the system, and this will allow me to put 2 transformers on this line. We're starting to dig up into this really freezing area up here, minus 62 degrees. But we're accessing space, or soon to be accessing space. That's nice. One thing I'd like to do is take all the coldness from here and use it for my initial cooling purposes. Oh, I just realized I've got this, so maybe I will send one of the dupes over to get an upgrade. Decided to give the skill to bump. This will bump up one of their skills. I'm sorry. Alright, let's see what we get. When we run this, I will click the button and complete the process. And this is going to give them, ooh, Deep Diver's Lungs. This is the second time that I've gotten this on a dupe in this playthrough. That is awesome. One of my favorite things to be able to get. So they're going to join the team. Now, Bump does a lot of mining. Actually, they're doing mining Atmos suits. I guess it doesn't really matter, but allows them to breathe a little bit less while they're exploring. I'm utilizing this little piece of water right here to open up this area. I'm going to find some crude oil. Maybe I've got to mop some up, but I'll stick that over and reconstruct this zone so it can store carbon dioxide once again. So letting some liquid out. Now this thing is running again. I don't think it's necessary to seal this off, but I'm relying just on this little tiny piece of water, so maybe it would be a smart idea. So that's going to remove the carbon dioxide that's building up in this zone. So the supply of water has run out. So very soon we're going to be starting to rely on polluted water as our water source, going through, of course, the sieves. Preparing this carbon dioxide storage area as well. This time I'm going to use brine as the liquid down here. And right now, how much brine is there? Almost looks like it's too much. Oh yeah, way too much. Okay, let's try this again. I want to aim under 2. I have 144. Let's mop that up and go again. So now we've got a pump down here. Built-in oil refinery. Couldn't remember which sensor picks up the dupe for this, but anyway, built 2 to see what happens. And once oil goes into this and is converted to petroleum, the first thing that's going to be done is a little bit of plastic will be made. We're going to re-engineer this later on, but we need a little bit of plastic to begin with. All these items all along the way are made out of steel, especially since it's about 78 degrees in this spot. Patched up the carbon dioxide storage in here, so now we've got 2 tiles with some liquid underneath. So even though the dupe is standing over here, or at least that's what the graphics depict, the dupe sensor is picking it up as if they're in one of these 2 tiles. So I'm going to get rid of this dupe sensor monitor. I'll keep the lamp over there. One of the few cases I make a steel lamp. Anyway, that is pushing petroleum over here, making its way to produce the first pieces of plastic of this guy. Oh, yeah, forgot that's going to make carbon dioxide, won't it? I guess the best thing to do with that is just to push it into here. I should be able to reach it just like that. Might as well mop that up too. These dupes are digging out of space around here. This is going to be a spot where I'm ultimately going to be growing some sleet wheat. I'm going to take all the coldness in a controlled way down to the sleet wheat farm. Sealing off the base in this area, because what I'd like to do is build a path for the dupes to be able to go with their Atmos suits around here, so the rest of this zone can be explored without the need for Dupes have to breathe oxygen in those zones. So now that I had this cooling line running for a while, let's have a look at temperature. It's making a difference. Don't have as much red in this zone. Still pretty warm down here. But anyway, this is just going to be an early base cooling. We can see it has had a warming effect in this zone. So we definitely need to have some method to cool stuff. Fortunately, we're producing plastic now. That's going to be one of the things that we need to make steam turbines. So now we have a new automation process. This is picking up eggs from these hatches and automatically depositing it down here. So that prevents the dupes from having to do it, but it also makes it such that I don't have an infinite cycle. I don't have to have special rules about who can go where. I can get rid of this thing, and that's nice. Now, one thing I do have to do is I have to make sure I have enough eggs out to keep these stables populated. So I will put that in now. Got a second transformer on this conductive wire. It's going to supply twice the amount of power in the regular one, 2,000 watts instead of 1,000. This is the little area that's going to look for eggs, and only I'm going to have to use an egg counter, or critter and egg counter. And I can find that in automation. I'll put that here. That's going to control one of the doors. That's going to either block or show a path to the conveyor loader between the auto sweeper. Alright, so the critter sensors are in. I'm using the knowledge of a true signal will override something. So basically what I want to say here is if any of these critters, let's actually not look at eggs, if any of these stables are less than 8, send a true signal. And that's the case right now, at least one of them is. So if that's the case, that's going to open this door, preventing, this is, I guess, the opposite of what I want. Let's put a NOT gate somewheres in this process, let's say right here, and we'll disconnect that. That's going to basically close the door in that particular case. And over here, if I say all critters put in 0, it's going to essentially send a signal to the dupes to wrangle critters that are here. Now, there are no critters at the moment, so what we want to do is make sure there's always some critters here. I'll make sure all these eggs don't get converted to meat. So we'll have another sensor over here that's counting both critters and eggs, and saying if it's below, let's say 10, open the door. And that means that this auto sweeper can access this guy. And if I say, you know what, I can select the type of eggs that I want to accept. Let's only take the regular hatch eggs. Then these hatch eggs are going to start to be sent over here instead of being converted to meat. But once this is happy that enough eggs and or hatches are here, it's going to close this door and allow the remainder of the eggs to be converted to meat. So no more having to manually hunt anymore. Can do one final hunt, I guess, and rely on this system. So that's going to make it a lot easier. Now over on this base, things are much messier because I've got pip stables all over the place. There's one down here, there's one over here. So what I might do instead is keep this system as it is for the time being and pivot as soon as quickly as we can to sleet wheat and this pepper bread, or a pincha pepper plant, making pepper bread, of course. So having these doors put on, I want to be able to open and close them based on whether the area underneath it needs cooling or not. Because I can create a vacuum and stop the cooling from going down to get the appropriate temperature for my future sleet wheat farm. So now I've got a path going from here all the way over to here. So I'm going to get the dupes to block off this area so they can't go down to this zone anymore, at least without Atmos suits. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a ladder, and I'm going to go up try to avoid too much spillage of polluted water down here, but we'll see what I can do. Maybe if I can get up like this, I can get in there, get rid of that, get that polluted water to drop down like that. Anyway, the main thing is I wanted to be able to get into this zone with Atmo suits only. Once I have that, I will maybe we'll start the process of analyzing these two geysers. This is going to be essentially the key to our survival, since they're producing all the water, or ultimately all the water that we're converting to oxygen. Eventually, I want to have the dupes be able to go out into the space area. So we're going to put a mechanized airlock. That, of course, will need some power. So that's going to go all the way down here and connect to there for that. The rest of the dupes are putting in some automated wire along these doors so I can open and close them as temperature requirements are necessary. Want to be careful about how hot it gets into this zone. This is made of steel, not necessarily worried about that, but I don't want the overall base to get too warm, so put a temperature thermosensor in there to turn that off at some point. I suspect I have enough plastic for my few use cases I want to get started with. Well, that, my friends, is cycle 100. I think that's going to do for today. When I come back next episode, we're going to put this sleet wheat system in. We're also going to have to grow some pinch and pepper plants. And we'll have to find a source of natural gas and get a cooking range. I also want to look at food storage. So lots to be done. I also want to do temperature control. Probably not so much on this base is an issue because I've got lots of cooling in this world. But over on this world, I probably want to focus a little bit on cooling, because I don't have a lot of natural cold areas. And a few natural cold areas, well, I'm already warmed up to 27, 28 degrees. And it is quite warm in this biome down here. Well, thanks anyone for likes, subscribing, and any comments. And hopefully I will see you in a future episode where we'll continue on and get a better food source for these dupes, as well as just generally advance the base. Until then. Oh, a colony achievement earned. I guess that is 100 cycles surviving that. Let's just take a look. Yeah, turn of the century, as well as some of the royal flush.